Oh boy. So I'm just laying here. It's like let me see. It's 5:30 in the morning. Anybody who know me know I got the worst insomnia. But damn, I'm watching YouTube. I'm just really flipping through all the channels, and I run across the video about David, the singer who killed that young, beautiful, or allegedly killed that young, beautiful little girl named Celeste. And I was just like thinking, I was watching some of it. I was trying to avoid watching it, but, continuously flipping through the channels, I was like, just, curiosity got the best of me. Like, what if they found out now? And little bit by little bit, I listened to some of this stuff, about the young girls that's, being harmed by grown men, and that they feel they're dating because these men have put these, fed them these fantasies and groomed them and did all of these things. I know because I went through these things too. And I guess, just laying here, in the bed, just thinking about the young ladies that I see on the news and YouTube and, all in my timeline that did not survive these situations with these men because they were unalived, because the man was scared to be told on, or exposed. And it just made me feel some kind of way because this 2026, when it was happening to me, it was 1980, 1981, 1982, 1983, 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988, 1989, 1990. Like, I feel like my entire childhood, my teenage life was all taken away by grown men who groomed me, treated me like I was their equal, when all they really wanted to do was use me for whatever it was they wanted, whether it was my body or just me being up under them. Like, and the crazy thing is, people don't even realize, like, I've heard people over the years, keep in mind I'm 54 now, I've heard people over the years that don't know my story or do know my story, it don't matter, or people on the news, people on TV, people online, people in the comments, people on the post, what could a grown man want with a little girl? And y'all would be amazed. You would be amazed. I lived my entire childhood basically in those situations, and like at my youngest that it happened to me, I was 8 years old. That was horrible. But once it began to happen, my life changed as a little girl. I didn't feel like a little girl no more. I started feeling different. I started desiring different. I started looking at things different, and like by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, I felt like I was in a full relationship with my school teacher, for 2 or 3 years. This man acted like he loved me. He kissed on me. He wrote me notes. He talked to me on the phone. We had each other's phone number. Well, of course, he had my number. We laughed. We shared secrets. He used to tell me stuff about, anything I asked him, he would tell me about. Even his wife, his family, the private things that him and his wife did or didn't do. And then in the meantime, while I'm caught up in this with him thinking he's loving me, I got another teacher at the same time trying to make me do things to him. And when I refused, that teacher bullied me for the next 3 years next 2 or 3 years that I had to stay in that school. He bullied me constantly in front of the other students. He bullied me constantly. He made me pay for not doing what he asked me to do. And when it kind of came out, because I told some of my friends, and I guess it shocked them, and they told other people, by the time it got around the school, the kids began to bully me, because they was like, why would he want you? You ugly. He don't need you. And so I had to be bullied by the kids. I was bullied by the teacher. I'm having inappropriate relationship with another teacher. Then when I go home from school, the neighbors, who all know that my mother works, because she's the only person who takes care of me and my brother, she works, all these people in our area knew it, and the men preyed on it all the time. So when I watch this stuff about these babies and what they got to go through, my heart breaks for them, because I know what it feels like. And even as a grown woman, I live with that stuff every day of my life. I don't care how much therapy I take, how many pills they try to throw at me. You know what I'm saying? I don't care, how much I've released the story, told it to people I loved, to try to let it go and forgive and forget. Those memories never leave. You know what I mean? My first heartbreak from a person outside of my father dying was a man who made me think that he loved me. I was the ugly duckling. At that time, I was mistreated by the other students. I was ignored by the other teachers. My mother worked all the time, and it was the one person who would hug me, who would kiss me, who would love on me. And even though I knew that he had no business messing with me, he had to be in his late 30s, and I was like 11 or 12. I knew it was wrong what he was doing, but I liked it because he was being kind to me. He treated me like with love and respect and everything. And then like 2-3 years in, he just cut me off. And I never understood why. And then it wasn't until like times changed, the decades went by, and they started talking about being groomed and things like that. And that's when I found out that I was groomed, and I was essayed. And when I got too old, he replaced me. But when I seen him and asked him, as a grown woman, I got to talk to him face to face. And I asked him, that was my main question, was why did you just drop me like that? You made me think you loved me, and then you just walked away. And let him tell it, he had to walk away. He said because his feelings had become much too deep, and he knew that what was going on wasn't right. And so he had to let me go. So whether that's the truth or not, or a little bit of and a little bit not, or both, whatever it is, it destroyed something in me at that tender age of 12, 13, 14, And so I'm just like feeling some kind of way, because these last, 5 years have been just crazy, with people coming out and telling things that happened to them. And, I'm just seeing it all, and I'm so triggered, and I'm so hurt, and especially for the girls who didn't make it. And I'm hurt for us women, girls, babies that did make it, because we live this nightmare for our entire lives. It don't go nowhere. Yeah, I forgive the teachers, both of them. I forgive the first guy who molested me, or excuse me, took away my innocence when I was 8 years old. My daddy just died, and you picked that time to take my innocence. He took my innocence right when my dad died. And he was not even nice about it. He was very mean to me, and I couldn't tell my mom because he was like, I'll tell her you made me do it. I'm 8. You know what I mean? So my entire childhood and my teenage life was basically taken away from me by grown men. Do I want to see somebody go to jail? Am I trying to prosecute somebody? Am I trying to bring up names? No, I'm not. I've forgiven everybody and moved on. Some of those people aren't even alive anymore. But it just hurt me so bad how much this is going on. When will it end? How can we protect our children? I was a nervous wreck raising my kids because I was watching over them like hawks all the time. Like I got on their nerves, trying to just be so overprotective of them. So, it's just crazy. I was just feeling some kind of way. I just wanted to share how I felt, and if anybody feel the same way, or you can relate to how I feel, or somebody that went through this, please, leave a comment, or you could private message me. I don't mind. I'm approachable, because I know a lot of people been through this. A lot of even young men, guys. I know guys who went through it with women. I know guys that were brutally raped as children. I know. I didn't mean to say brutally. I should have said raped, but I'm learning. Yeah, I know about guys having those situations too. And I just ask that Allah, bless us all, because it's the worst thing to ever have to deal with. And it's unforgettable. It never leaves your mind. It never leaves your heart. And in some instances, it feels like it don't never leave your body either. You never feel like you clean enough, ever. You know what I mean? You never feel like your body is clean enough. And I also wonder sometimes, like, what would my life have been like? Or how much better would it have been had those things not happened to me and created this thing in me that made me feel like I had to be extra promiscuous, or I had to be super duper promiscuous and just right out foul with it. It's like the only way that I could protect myself, because if I acted soft and vulnerable, I was just taken. But at least if I acted rough, like I wanted it and I needed it when I got older, it was like, it felt more like I was in control. But even looking back on that, I wasn't in control. I was living off of those old triggers and feelings and emotions and situations that nobody helped me through. My mother, I loved her and I love her, but she didn't know how to help me either. My mother basically just was like, it's your fault for being the way that you are. And I don't know, maybe she just didn't know no better. Maybe it hurt her. Maybe, it hurt her, but I know it wasn't my fault. I will never accept that blame, But I forgive her too. So I just had to drop that line and say how I feel. Because right now I just feel my heart is broken, because I'm constantly seeing these beautiful children. Our children shouldn't have to suffer. I just took a class about a year ago, or maybe 2. It was child neglect and abuse. I took it at Mont. And out of all the years that I've gone to school on and off, going to college, I've never really fully read what my teacher assigns me to read. I kind of skim over it and I go back and look for answers. But this book and this class, I was so triggered. And the only reason I took the class was because it was the only one available online in social work that you didn't need a prerequisite to. So I read the book. I mean, literally everything she told us to read, I read it word for word. And the book broke me down. Just seeing what so many children have to deal with and knowing it because I dealt with it. It's like people say, I don't send my kids to daycare, or my kids ain't spending the night over nobody's house. I keep my kids at home because that's where I can keep an eye on them. Nah, baby, it be happening right in your home. Sometimes it happen right up under the mother nose. Sometimes mothers know and do nothing. The majority of time stuff happened to me, it was always the closest people in the circle. It was. And for some of the people who shared their story with me, it was their uncle, their father, not stepfather, I said father. Stepfathers, cousins, aunties, best friends, brothers. I can't even begin to tell you some of the horrible stories I've heard that people have shared with me. Friends, family, people that we just was drinking and it came out because their pain was right there on the table and they wanted to tell it. They wanted to open up about how they felt. People always have opened up to me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes their story is so heavy on my heart, because I'm an empathic person. So, it's heavy on my heart. But I can't say I don't want to hear it, because I'm open to hearing it, because I know how it feels. And I can relate so well. I can relate on having your innocence taken. I can relate on growing up way too fast because grown-ups playing games with these children's minds. And then they just drop us off like we never existed. So then you got your daughter running around, maybe she's sleeping with a lot of guys, and you just like, she just this and she that. No, dig deeper, mama. Dig deeper, dad. Dig deeper, teachers. When I was like that, everybody, and she just disgusted. Oh my God, the hatred that came on to me by women, grown women, especially the black women. They would call me the worst names. Nobody investigated anything. They just judged me at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So people need to ask questions. Look deeper than what you see on the surface. That pain runs deep. That confusion changes your life. I remember getting up off the floor at 12 with a 16-year-old. I remember getting up, pulling my pants up, buttoning up my shirt, walking in the house, looking in the mirror at myself and thinking, I'm a grown woman today. And when my mama came home, we started fighting hard from that point on, because she couldn't tell me nothing, because I felt like my whole life had changed. All these grown men in my face. Yeah, I'm going to be different. Mothers and daughters, we got that thing that we do when we getting into it all the time. But we got to learn how to relate to our daughters better, because they need us. They got something to tell us that we need to know. And it might be about the man who living in your house right now. But you ain't going to know, because you're so mad at your daughter and the way she's carrying herself. You treating her like a foe, like she a chick on the street. No, that's your daughter. Ask her some questions. Take some of that hate off your heart. And then sometimes it's hard for the mothers to take the hate off their heart because the same thing that happened to them. But you know what? I'm going to say this and I'm going to be done. I tried to break that generational curse with my kids. I'd be damned if I let my daughters or my sons run around hurting at their heart because somebody done been inappropriate with them. I don't care if it was a touch or if it was the full exposure, whatever it was. I always let my kids know that I am here. I don't care what happened. It's not your fault. I couldn't stress that enough to my babies. And even in that, I still couldn't protect my children the way I wanted to. And I worked hard at it. Because you know what? The things that happened to them, people had enough sense to wait until they caught them off somewhere. Because they knew if they tried to do anything to my kids around me or anywhere where I could be a part of it, they knew I would go crazy. They knew that me and my children were close. But you got some people that use situations in your family as an opportunity to be a predator to your children. You know, and I hope this video don't get took down or flagged or anything because I tried to be as appropriate as I could, telling my story or telling you how I feel, you know. So I love y'all. I'm going to go ahead and let y'all go because this was just a lot for me. You know, definitely make sure, you know, you like, subscribe to my page. You know, this is a healing journey that I'm on. And I'm sharing everything with y'all. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible without overdoing things. Because I can be an oversharer. And I don't want to be oversharing. But at the same time, I think some things is very important to discuss. We got to save our children. All right, y'all.